You're watching Next Pitch, the student athlete playbook for parents raising tomorrow's athletes.
Hi, Anthony Leverett's here with Hannah Huesman of Mental Sweat, and we are almost halfway through. This is episode 9 of our short little 18-part series on a whole bunch of different topics related to both athletics and corporate America. This has been a blast. Hannah, I know you're in the middle of crazy travel right now and everything going on in the summertime, so thank you for making the time today to have this conversation.
Of course, it's my favorite.
Well, this is a big topic today, and I don't know if everybody likes this topic as much as I do, but I love it. Communication, and I think it is one of those things, if done correctly or with a plan, can have a major impact in both the sports environment and in corporate America. And let's just start with the word communication. Let's define communication. What does communication mean?
Yeah, I think it's such a loaded question, right? And I think it's such an important question because if anything, in any relationship, what's like the number one piece of advice people tell you? Like, hey, what's the best thing you can do for your marriage to be successful? Communicate, right? Yeah. But I think sometimes we feel like that might just be in that kind of relationship and not all the other relationships. But the reality of it is, in any relationship, communication is key, right? Whether it's with your boss, with your coach, with your players, and most importantly, with yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Like how you're constantly communicating is so important just to keep a pulse on you. So for me, communication is being open, being honest, having conversations in multiple different ways, right? Sometimes they're verbal, sometimes they're nonverbal, sometimes they're emotional conversations, sometimes they're logistic conversations, sometimes it's very direct, sometimes it's complimentary, right? There's so many different types of ways to communicate. But it's you talking with someone else or with yourself to try to express or work through whatever's going on, right? It could be something right in front of you. It could be thoughts. It could be real things. It could be not real things. It could be made up things, right? But it's just like, let's get this out there and work through it. And actually, one of the best, not that I do therapy, right? But it's on the far end of the spectrum of like mental performance and mental health. We've talked about that in our prior episodes, but it's like talk therapy is like one of the best things out there, right? It's like just so you can talk, get all my thoughts out, figure it out. It's all jumbled in my brain. Like, let's get it out there and start to kind of align it, create clarity, dissect it more with someone or with yourself. So it's really just getting things out there and then seeing where it takes you, which it can take you in literally a million different directions. But remember, we have 60,000 thoughts a day. So when we're communicating them, we're kind of getting them out, we're putting them out there, and we're able to kind of process a little bit better just because we're putting it out there.
So let's start with, I love that definition, by the way. Let's start with the coach. Okay. Yeah. I'm coaching a youth team or a high school team, anything not at the highest level. And I feel like I'm struggling as a coach to reach my players with my communication style. It seems to be bouncing off of them. It's not landing in the way that I want it to land for them.
Yeah.
How do I go about changing or understanding how to do that better?
Yeah, great question. Off the bat, the first thing that comes to my mind is you're probably talking too much. And we hate to hear that as instructors, as leaders, as coaches, because no, Anthony, I have so much I can tell you. I have so much stuff I can give you. Even even in the opening communication answer, like maybe ramble a little, right? It's like we all have so many thoughts and so many things we want to say. But the famous quote is, right, and I'm not going to get it totally right, but it's like, if you know something well, you can explain it simply, right? Versus like, let me tell you all the 87 reasons why communicating well will help you, right? And there's a time and a place where let's go into the depth. Let's go into why is this important and how do we actually do it? And then there's a time to just like punch you in the face with the what. And you need to know that, right? And like, especially when it comes to big audiences or younger audiences or audiences who have trouble paying attention for a long period of time. When I say long period of time, I mean more than 10 minutes. Like it's got to be almost like little face punches here and there versus like a 30-minute soapbox. It just can't. And like, unfortunately, like, I don't know when that's going to change, but I think people like little bite-sized pieces of information and things that are really sticky and that really resonate versus like a long seminar, especially when you're talking the coach player dynamic. So, first thing I say is keep it short. Second thing I would say is target a few of your leaders first. Target a few of your leaders outside of the group, right? Pull them aside, have maybe more in-depth conversations, get a vibe for the people, ask for feedback. Like, don't be afraid to lead with that vulnerability piece of like, hey, how are the meetings going? Are they too long? Where can I, like get a feel for where they're at and then listen and be open to that feedback. And then take it from there, right? Not everything, and this goes for corporate America too, has to be said to a whole group, right? Sometimes it does. We all get it. But sometimes it's like, what is going on here, right? So short and sweet, and then see how you can break it up. That would be my first two steps on how to be better at communicating.
And I love both of those. So as a coach, I tell coaches all the time, if you've got a 10-minute drill,
Yeah,
talk for 1 minute, do for 9.
love it.
If you have a 15-minute drill, talk for 1, do for 14,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
just
literally.
get them to do, and then you can communicate within that process. And
Well, the
and
more
then
you talk, the less they actually listen and get. Like,
uh,
and there's research behind that, even on like feedback loops. Like, if you're giving feedback off of every single tiny thing that they do, they're actually not learning and growing as much as they possibly should be. So it's
yeah.
all about finding that balance.
What about the other thing that I talk to coaches about, and is that you need to have a language that is your program, right? If you're gonna
Yeah,
I'm gonna use basketball because I'm a basketball guy.
yeah,
We call pick and roll POB.
yep,
Okay,
love it.
it's POB. That's our language, right? And then we name every single action that there is has a name for it, and everybody understands that. How important in that realm in athletics do you feel like that unique language that
Mhm.
defines everything that you do is important in that teaching process and
Yeah.
communicating, getting your people to understand what you're communicating to them?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly powerful, right? Well, first, it's simplicity. It's simplicity, right? There's no long, like, all you have to say is that initial. All you have to say is one thing, and it should trigger a bunch of different thoughts in their mind of what they need to do instead of every time you do it, let's go through what all this means step by step. And then the second thing I think is when you have people all speaking the same language, you've got something really powerful. So as a
Mhm.
coach or the leader, you're speaking certain things. And then when they start saying it, then all of a sudden your captain starts saying it, your leader starts saying it. Now the water boy's saying it, the people, the assistant, everybody's saying it, right? It's becomes your own thing that everybody gets to take ownership over. We actually, mental performance is very hard to define and hard to evaluate, right? Because it's a lot of it is not just black and white. A lot of it's like, how do you measure confidence, right? It's all of that. It can be vague, it can be real. One of the ways we actually measure success of a mental performance program is how much are they speaking our language. So
Mm.
when we define mental toughness as right thing, right time, does a player come and say, yeah, Han, I'm just not focusing on the right thing at the right time? Ping,
Winning.
right. Or maybe they get interviewed post game and they're like, I'm just really locked in. They don't have to say, I've been working with my mental performance coach,
Yeah.
right? They just have to say, I've just been really feel like I'm locked in and focusing on the right thing, right time. Ping. Like, it's like we are building momentum. They are taking ownership over this because we have made it important. And now it's kind of our little thing. So I think it's incredibly important and arguably easier, right? Than like having them be all over the place and scatterbrained. It's like, come up with your core, whatever that is, and hit it home, hit it home, hit it home. And when they start using it, that's when it almost becomes like a self-oiled machine, right?
It's gonna help you win too.
Yeah.
I knew we were winning when, like, we'd, go through this whole scouting process, right, and get ready for a game, and then the team throws in a new wrinkle that you just hadn't seen on
Mhm.
film, and they're running wing POB, and we had been supposed to be in push down on all side POB, but they were running a counter to it that was scoring against us, right? And so the kids come off the floor, players come off the floor, and coach, they're in wing POB, they're running wing POB, we're in push down, they're getting too close to the rim for us to be able to get back to our person. Should we switch to flat hedge compress? When those kinds of conversations start happening, and you give them the language to be able to to speak and understand from, they're going to grow, and it's going to help you win.
It's amazing. And it's getting you all on the same page. Like everybody knows maybe nobody else knows what you guys are saying, but you guys do. And that's all that matters. So I think the only caveat to this is be careful, especially with teams or bigger entities, right? Where maybe you have multiple departments. You don't want the mental performance department to have the 3 Ps, the pitching department to have the 7 Bs, the strength and conditioning coaches to have the 3 S's. Like then now that's where you start to lose traction, right? And like it's such a simple thing, but it happens all the time because we all have our own little things. But chances are you can come up with one big one and make it into your own from it. And this is with obviously larger organizations, but I've seen that a lot in professional baseball. It's like, we got to be succinct. We got to be on the same page, or else you're all saying the same thing, but in a bunch of different ways, which is such wasted space. Like we don't have time for that. Like what you say is work ethic, you say is hard work, and you say is effort. Like it's like those 3 things can all be the same, but now this kid's like trying to take notes on this, this, and this. And it's like, we can't even keep up with it. Right. And so it's, can it all be effort? Can it all be like, that's the main thing. Can it all be that? And like most of the time you can lump almost everything into certain categories. So it's just like being succinct, being simple. That's only going to make it easier. Right. And smoother and well-versed.
We call it clear, concise communication.
Love it.
Those 3 things, those 3 words, that everything has to be clear, everybody has to be concise, and we all have to be communicating clearly and concisely. And if you're trying to be wordy and long and different people are saying different things at different times about the same thing, you're not clear and you're not concise. And then you don't have communication, right? Like that's the only way to have it.
Yeah. And I always say clarity over complexity.
I like that.
I think it's everyone coach's job, but specifically a mental performance coach's job is to come in and like, say I'm working with you individually and there's just a lot going on in your mind, right? Which of course there is 60,000 thoughts. It's like, okay, let's take all this complexity and make it really, really clear. Because if you don't have clarity, there's no way you're going to be able to go and perform your best. Literally no way. You're going to get in your own way. So clarity over complexity.
I love that. So let's stay with the players for just a little bit here now. So the internal communication is something that happens all the time, right? And I actually was talking to a young kid about this weekend after a 7-on-7 football tournament my son was playing in. And when you start communicating negatively with yourself, everyone can see it. Whether you want them to, you're communicating something outward all the time with your body language. When we in basketball, we talk about communicating with your hands, your eyes, and your mouth, right? Like all of those things are communicating all the time. What is that internal conversation, and how do we adjust that and arrest that when it becomes negative?
Yeah. So such a good question. I think you have to remember the most important person you talk to on a daily basis is yourself. Like, because you are going to talk to you way more than you talk to anybody else, whether you're aware of it or not, right? You have subconscious and conscious thoughts. But this is where it comes back to feedback and self-awareness, right? Of understanding, okay, if I get in this situation and XYZ happens and I respond negatively, I know I'm going to beat myself up here. So I have to go prepare beforehand on how do I want to respond? How do I want to tell myself to respond versus just reacting emotionally? And it's all, again, it kind of all comes back to how you prepare. Because if you wait for the heat of the moment and something happens, you're not going to communicate in the best possible way, or it might take you longer to get to where you want to be functioning and how you want to be functioning because you haven't done the prep work in the beginning. So it's really a lot of understanding what's going to derail me, what's going to throw me off, what's going to get, and like, you have to admit that that's going to happen too, right? A lot of people don't admit it, and then they don't realize it till it's too late. And that's where practicing self-awareness and learning that. And then once you know that's an area of weakness where I can be better and get better control of my thoughts and how I'm communicating, that's what I have to work on. And then I would challenge you to go put yourself in that situation during practices or even by yourself, right? Because it can be really frustrating to do that. And maybe you don't want to do it around everybody. That's fine. But you have to practice getting those emotions out of whack and then bringing them back. Because if the only time you're ever experiencing that is in the heat of the moment, then like, how are you ever going to be prepared to handle that?
Yeah.
Right. And so whether it's practicing imagery in your mind to create the situation, or whether you go and play and create a situation for yourself to overcome, I don't know. Like it can be a bunch of different ways for you to experiment with that. But you got to go put yourself in that situation.
Yeah, it was. I just did an interview with Nathan Adrian, one of the amazing story, one of the fastest men on the planet in the pool for a long time, and
Yeah.
we were talking about peak performance, and he was talking about his internal communication on the day of the meet and getting to that peak performance,
Yeah.
and how important the words that he said to himself were to
Yeah.
trigger his mind to be able to perform.
Yeah.
And is there I know you just said it's different for everybody and there's different ways to do it,
Yeah.
but if you have someone that is communicating negatively with themselves all the time, there's a chance I'm going to screw this up. I may not win today. I may. What is that? How do you flip that
Yeah.
script to
Yeah.
be able to get your brain at yourself to communicate positively with
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah. Well, first off, most people think that way, right? Like
Yeah.
most people naturally, when it comes to pressure situations, are focused on worst case scenario. What if I embarrass myself? What if I lose? What if I make a mistake? What if I let my team down, let my family down? You name it. So it's honestly, it's really just okay. If my brain, my natural brain tendency, subconscious, I'm not trying to think those thoughts. I don't want to think those thoughts, but that's what's happening. We have to counter that with some other kind of thinking. And this is where it gets really interesting, because it's not just positivity, right? Like, oh no, you're going to be great. You're going to strike out. No, you're going to hit a home run, right? It's like that's not helping you as much as you think it's actually helping you, because your brain has a BS meter, right? It knows when you're lying, right? Like it's like, oh, you're not going to, and it could actually do more damage, because now you're like trying to have this fake, good, positive conversation, but you don't believe it.
Mm.
So it's like it can actually be like more hurtful than even just plain negative self-talk. So what do you say to yourself? This is where I tell people, argue with yourself with facts.
Mm.
Your brain can't um your brain can't argue with facts that much, because the subconscious thoughts can't argue with the conscious facts. Okay, so think about this. So you get up there, you're like, oh, I'm gonna fail, I'm gonna embarrass myself. The facts are, I've practiced, I've worked my tail off for this, like I've done everything in my power. How would that happen, right? Like the chances of that happening are actually pretty slim. I have a higher chance of succeeding than I do failing, or I have a higher chance of having a good game and like a 1% chance of actually embarrassing my whole family, right? It's like, how do you measure those? And that's easier to argue with than like, pretend I'm not having these negative thoughts is not going to work. Trying to be way too positive and like unrealistically positive isn't going to work either. So it's like, what's the facts? Like, yeah, this team's really good. It's going to be really hard, but we're really good too. Or I'm really good today. Or I slept really good last night. Or I've had a good week of practice today. Or I'm feeling confident in this area. So feel like I'm going to stay in that zone, right? So it's all about arguing your subconscious negative thoughts with facts of
Yeah.
what you've done. Now you better back it up, right? You can't tell yourself you've been practicing really hard and you weren't practicing hard. So it's gotta, the talk has to match the walk. But if it does, then those conversations within your head are a lot easier to control than if maybe you have been slacking off and you're the only one who kind of knows, and you're trying to pull yourself out of that negative headspace, and it's not right. Your thought process isn't matching your work process. And that's where there can sometimes be a disconnect too. Because again, your brain's not going to believe it, right? If you haven't actually done it, your brain's not going to believe it. So you want to argue subconscious negative thoughts with facts.
I love that. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about for coaches, and I think this can transition for us into the corporate America space, but I really believe that how you start a sentence, the first
Mhm.
sentence of a conversation, goes a long way in how that conversation is going to end. So, example would be for me as a coach, if I said, I don't want to swear too loudly on here, but the GD, Hannah, you just missed that down screen. What the hell are you doing? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what comes out of my mouth next. I could be John Wooden, and you're not going to take that. But
Yeah.
if I started that conversation with Hannah, I know you were going hard, but we missed that down screen. This is the technique that you use to be able to go and set that down screen, and you're going to
Yeah.
get better if you do it this way. The message that you get from me, I'm trying to give you the same thing. It's going to be received differently. We're
Yeah.
all emotional beings, especially in the coaching world. And so our emotions sometimes rule us and get out of control. But how, as a leader, as a coach, how do I stop that trigger that makes me before I teach and I correct?
Oh, that's a great question.
And it's a huge problem
No doubt.
it's a huge problem in corporate America. It's also a huge problem in youth sports.
No
But
doubt.
I'm curious, just I see it over and over again that
Yeah.
kids only hear the first thing that comes out of their mouth, because the
Yeah.
first thing that comes out of the mouth is toxic.
No
And
doubt.
I'm in fight or flight mode and
No
protect
doubt.
myself, and I don't get the message that I need to be better.
Yeah, it's funny because my mind's went to a few different places. Because when I think about pro sports, pro baseball, no yelling,
Yeah.
none. Like if you yell at a grown man, like it's not going to be pretty, right?
Yeah.
Like so there's no yelling. It's all conversations. If anything, it's like soft. Like there was a couple times that I was like, are they
Can you
talk
say
like?
that again? Can you say that? Because I think coaches out there need to hear
No
this.
doubt. Which is like, this is the trick. This is, my mind went crazy when you said that. Cause at first I was like, coaches don't need to yell. And then I was like, well, coaches don't yell in professional baseball. It's almost soft. And I'm not saying soft, gentle. I'm just saying it's like, let's have a conversation. Hey, how did that feel? What do you think about that one? Where were we going here? It's more questions being asked than it is like straight demands, which with kids, right? Of course, you're going to have to demand a little bit more, but you can still ask questions with kids. And when you said youth coaches are yelling like that, that's unbelievable to me. Like, what are we doing? There might be like a sweet spot, maybe like high school coaching. I'm thinking like high school football coaches. Like, okay, you got whatever, 14 to 18-year-old boys who
100 of them out there that you got to raise your voice every once in a while to
100%.
be heard. Yeah.
100%. Like, and even in a basketball gym, right? There's a lot of noise. Like, there are time and places. I'm not saying never do that and like know when to do it and when not to do it. But if you do it all the time, it just becomes like who you are, and like it is what it is.
Noise. It's noise.
It's total noise. But to think about youth coaches literally yelling, the only time you should yell is like to get people's attention, right? Like,
Yes.
hey, everybody listen up. Here's what we're gonna do next.
Yeah.
Or if somebody's really out of line, sure, like raise your voice. But if you're yelling about one little drill or one little thing, and every day they know you're gonna blow up 2 or 3 times, like what are we doing? And so I think that's where you have to take a step back and say, like, what are my intentions with doing this? And is it actually working? Am I getting, also chances are, if you're continuously yelling, you're probably not getting the results you want, right? I would assume.
Totally.
If you go to yell, it's because you're trying to get something out of them. Okay. If you have to continue yelling and then continue yelling, then are you continuously not getting it out of them? Then can we not take a step back and say, maybe this isn't working? And which goes back to the very first thing we said, like, how do we communicate better? Maybe you communicate one-off with one person. Maybe you do it in different ways. Maybe you keep it shorter. Maybe you keep it less emotional. It's just, what are you trying to elicit out of your audience, out of your players, out of your team, out of whatever it is? What are you trying to get out of them? And the less you talk, the better. The quieter you talk, the better. Unless there is a point, which do not get me wrong. There are points, and maybe there's 1 point a day, right? Whatever. But there can't be 17 points a day that you have to yell, like every single time we go out on the field, especially with youth kids. Like, it's probably your patience that's being tested versus anything that they're doing. Like, they're kids. Of course, they're annoying and all over the place and not really listening or paying attention. Okay, hey, run to the pole and back. We'll see you in a minute. When you get back, like, be ready to listen. I don't know, right? I don't know. Find different ways. But that's, to me, there's a sweet spot. Like, there's very rare yelling. I work in professional hockey, no yelling, literally no yelling. If there's any yelling, it's players talking to each other.
Yeah.
If you yell in a professional setting in pro sports, you are literally an anomaly. I don't even think an NHL coach or NFL coaches yell that much. College is different. College is different. High school is a little different, specifically with football. I'm married to a football coach. All they do is yell. I remember going to a practice and being like, oh, all you guys do is yell. But again, you're outside, 100 yards to work with. It's like to communicate with him over there, you literally do have to yell. So it's just different. So like if I'm a coach and I'm listening to this and I'm like, shoot, maybe I am yelling, just take a step back, say, is it purposeful and is it working?
Yeah.
And if it is, great. If it's not, how can we go about this in a different way?
Yeah, and I think when coaches hear this, like it's this, I hear this all the time, and I'm going to swear right now, but it's 100% bullshit.
Mhm.
The old school method, and kids just aren't tough enough to take it anymore.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't disagree more with that statement. And what athletics is supposed to be for young people is the best classroom for life that is out there, and there is opportunity to teach and correct and get them to learn from this.
Yeah.
But yelling becomes demeaning quite often,
Yeah.
and you're going to see it as your kid starts to get into sports. It's one, if we could get one thing out of this podcast that we do, it'd be that one coach will
One.
have this will have an impact on them, and the amount of kids that they'll come in touch with
Yeah.
is changing that tone and tenor that they start that conversation with, and your kids are going to respond in such a better way if
Yeah.
it doesn't start with yelling.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating to think about and actually a little sad, honestly.
Yeah.
And you talk about, right? We talk about how, especially in youth sports, the key is to keep it fun.
Yeah.
Right? Like get them to have fun. And people are like, how do I make it fun? Do I get water balloons? Do I have to play music? No, maybe you just don't. You scream your head off the whole practice.
That's right.
Like
That's
that
exactly right.
tiny adjustment might actually make it more enjoyable.
That's
What a
exactly right.
concept, right? It's like maybe they're searching for things to add when they should be searching for things to take away.
Yeah,
Um,
and this is a whole kind of philosophical question here that I can get up on my soapbox and beat my chest on this. But if you're having to yell because your kids aren't doing what you are asking them to do continually, you're not teaching them well enough, and you don't know your sport well enough. So dive into your teaching methods and
Yeah.
the actual skills that you are trying to get your kids to complete,
Yeah.
and find out better ways to teach them
Yeah.
than yelling at them and telling them to do it better. Like that's just not, it's not productive.
Exactly. Extreme Ownership is a great book.
Yeah.
And it's all about anything that's not working with my team or my organization is my fault as
Yeah,
a leader.
that's
Like
right.
I don't look, this is one bad egg, this isn't working, they're not listening. It's like, how am I not communicating? Why is that person an anomaly because of me? What am I like? It all comes back to the leader, which is hard. I remember the first time I read it, I was like, there were a couple of chapters I was like, what? Like, no, but it is. It so is, right? And it's up to
Yeah.
us to try to figure that out. So you just made me think of that when you're talking about like looking back at the coaches if it's not working. That's just a great book a good reminder, right? We
Yeah.
always need reminders, but Extreme Ownership, it's a great book. Easy read
All
too.
right. Corporate America.
Yeah.
So communication obviously critical for great productivity, great culture, all of the things that you want your organization to be known for within your value proposition to your own people that work for you.
Yeah.
How do you help you walk into an organization and you're like, okay, this communication is broken.
Yeah.
What is that conversation like when you begin that process with the team of leaders?
Yeah, it almost always comes back to like it's a two-way street, right? It's a two-way road. Communication is a two-way road. You have to be willing to give it and willing to receive it. And I think it starts with the top, right? And it starts with like what foundations are you putting down? Hey, my door's always open. Come talk to me. Your door's literally always shut, right? Or I'm open to feedback. What did you just say to me? Right? And like it's like you're saying one thing but your actions are another. That's literally the first thing that happens in most corporate America conversations. And then it's like, how do we lead better? The way you create good communications in organizations is it starts with how you're actually doing it. So are you authentic? Are you vulnerable? Is the door open? Do you provide feedback? Are you accountable? And then once you set that foundation, the rest is like a ripple effect of that. It sounds so simple, but so many leaders are just head down, like do the technical, tactical stuff of the work that needs to be done, and the rest, who cares? But and Sometimes some companies function like that and flourish like that, right? But if you want this to be like an epic place to work and people to stay forever and people to work really hard for you and give their all for you, these things have to be in place to where they can come talk to you when they want to. They can feel safe in their work environment. I was actually talking about this to somebody the other day. The psychological hierarchy of needs, right? Like the pyramid that
Mm,
we've all seen. The bottom level is safety.
mm,
Okay. So think about that. And then it's hunger, water, shelter, all that stuff. Think about it. If you're hungry, but all of a sudden, maybe you hear gunshots, you're probably not worried about what you're about to eat because you're
right.
literally worried about your safety. Or you go to bed at night and you're like, you don't feel comfortable like falling asleep. Maybe it's a dangerous, right? Whatever it is. Nothing else matters if you're not safe. Okay. And that's in life. That's like in general. But think about that in a work environment or on a team, right? If you don't feel safe in an office space, which maybe you're not going to like actually get shot, right? It's not life or death, but it could be your career, which feels like life and death, right?
Yeah.
If you don't feel safe in these environments, you're not going to be the best product of yourself that you could ever be. So, how do we make people feel safe in a work environment? They feel heard. They feel like they can voice their opinion. They can be themselves. They can give feedback. They can get feedback. It's just this revolving door of like authenticity, accountability, feedback, vulnerability of just a really safe environment. And I'm not talking about you have to come in and say your life's deepest, darkest secret. I'm just talking about from a performance standpoint, right?
Yeah.
We got to be open and honest about our performance here because that's what we're doing if we're trying to be the best we can possibly be, right? Like, if we're not and we're happy with where we're at, cool, chill, do whatever. I don't care. But if you're looking at your team or your organization or your workspace and you want it to be better, these things are like non-negotiables. And I think even if you're like, well, we're performing okay, even though we're not really good, you could be performing so much better and get so much more out of your people if you just had these conversations and were open to it. And the hardest part, right, is being open to it and then doing something about it. But the people who do this really well, it's really cool. And people love working at these environments. I was in Nashville. I did a speaking event not too long ago. And it was like a blue collar construction company. And these people were like ear to ear grinning the whole time. And I was like, this is just the place to work.
Yeah.
And
Give
they're
me
putting
an application.
huge conference, huge back and forth. It was just awesome. And so when you put these things in place, it's so tangible. Like the air's cleaner, like everybody's happier. It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. But it's got to start from the top. Like those have to be things that aren't just being said and aren't just on the wall. They're things that like the higher ups are actually doing and implementing and living out themselves.
What are some appropriate corrective measures? Right. So there are people who have job performance that have to be corrected and taught, and they must get better,
Yeah.
or you're going to have to replace them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what
Totally.
what sort of a corrective measures can you put in place or processes to correct people in place that doesn't stunt growth, that doesn't make them scared, that doesn't make them fear,
Yeah.
oh no, here comes the boss, this
Yeah.
is going to get ugly?
Yeah. First things first, we're talking accountability, right? We're talking about accountability. For accountability to genuinely work, it's got to be in place before it's needed.
Mhm.
Think about that. I
Yeah.
kind of want to write a whole book about this. Think about this because if
I
we
want to
don't
read
talk
it.
about it. Yeah, you don't talk about it. You don't do anything about it. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, Anthony, you need to get rid of that plant behind you. And you're like, what? 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 Like it catches you off guard. You don't understand why. And then I walk out of the room. And like now you're asking 100 million questions. You don't understand why. Versus if like before you even start, you're like, just to let you know, like we're always going to give you feedback. Like there's certain things that like aren't okay, like maybe a plant in the background, like whatever, like but it's like, but just so you know, we're going to talk about that. And if we ever have a problem, don't worry, I'll be the one to communicate with you. And so you'll know as soon as it happens. And so that way there's no questions, there's no gray area, there's no you wondering. It's not going to be Bob giving you feedback. It's not going to be Jason giving you feedback. It's going to be me. It's going to be from Hannah. And I'm going to come give you feedback. And then we can have a conversation about it, keep moving forward. But if you ever have any questions, you can also ask me. If there's something like, hey, Hannah, is this plant okay? Feel free to come ask me that, right? That way, when it happens, you're like, oh, yeah, this was what they told me was going to happen if I stepped out of line or did something I wasn't supposed to do or had a plan I wasn't supposed to have, right? I knew this was going to happen. And it's just easier received. I might still not be happy about it because I have a question. Well, now I want to have a conversation about it. Great. But you knew the process of what it was going to be before we even had to use it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest change people can make. And even no matter what situation you're in right now, right? Like maybe you've had a business for 15 years and you want to start doing this. You can start it right now. Like, hey, we're starting a new system in place right now. I'm going to be your feedback buddy. You're going to be my feedback buddy. You're like, whatever it is. I think it's all just about setting the standard before. That way, when it happens, it's not like, I feel like you just attacked my personality and who I am because you told me to get rid of this plant. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Yeah.
you depersonalize it, you make it performance based. It shouldn't be shocking. And it just creates a whole better, more productive environment with less emotion.
And I think one thing, and I'd love your feedback on this. One thing I learned as a young coach from the smartest dude I ever got to be around, a guy named Gordy James. He told me when I took over my own program someday that to remember it's important that people know what you stand for. And that
Mhm.
list can be really long. All the things that you're going to do that are part of your productivity and
Mhm.
how you're going to build your program, and make that list as big as you want it. And then as a leader, it's also really important, and maybe more important, that people know what you won't stand for. But that
Love
list needs
that.
to be really, really short
Love that.
so that you don't have to constantly be communicating to people what they did wrong. You're
Yeah.
always talking about things that we stand for, and we're getting better at those things. And this is the list that we won't stand for. And you don't have to legislate that list very much. But when it does come up, they know exactly what it is that they did. And you have a platform to be able to talk to them about that.
I freaking love that. I
Yeah.
can't remember what team it was, but I was once, I think it was visiting a team, and the head coach had like one rule. And
Yeah.
it was similar, right? It was like the one thing you have to do, and it might have been something like be a good teammate or be a good person, and like everything that you could have made a list of 20 things: be on time, clean your locker, don't be like, you know, whatever. All these things can come back to like being a good teammate or
That's
be a
right.
good person. So it was like it was one thing that he didn't stamp right. Not being a good teammate is the one
Yeah.
thing, and then that way it was like, hey, you're not being a good teammate.
Yeah.
And that list, right? How do you describe what a good teammate is? It's infinite,
That's
right?
right.
But it's like, were you a good teammate or not?
Yeah.
And then when
Yeah.
someone's like not being a good teammate, it's like, ooh, right? That's the one rule. And I mean, I freaking love that, right?
We had
Because
one.
it's
We
too
had
much.
one.
Yeah.
Don't do anything to embarrass yourself, your family, or our program. That was it.
Yeah. Very
And
cool.
then that
So being late, right?
it's
Still,
embarrassing.
oh yeah,
That's
it
right.
really is. Yeah.
And so being able to not have to legislate, it allows you to not have to communicate negatively about too many things,
Love
and
it.
all the things that you will stand for. You can communicate positively about how they're doing those, how they're growing within those,
Right.
how you're getting better at those things.
Right.
I think it goes a
Great.
long way to create better communication.
Yeah, and most of the time, people know all the things they shouldn't be doing. Will
That's
they
right.
listen to it and follow it? No, but, like, imagine, like, here's the 50 things you're not allowed to do. What?
Yeah. Seriously.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So I want to talk
Especially if
about.
you're working with, like, 18 and older, like, come on,
Yeah.
we can't do that.
Yeah, no, nobody wants that, right?
Yeah.
Here's the list of all the things I can do wrong today. So the in the workplace, digital tone and digital communication is nobody wants to be embarrassed. Nobody, especially, and nobody wants to be embarrassed, no matter how old you are.
Totally.
But nobody wants to be embarrassed in the workplace by somebody else, and then have to walk around knowing that 27 different people were on an email that I got called out on.
It
How do
happens.
you, it does happen. How do you talk about that digital communication and making sure that that tone and tenor of what you write is well received on the other end of that?
Yeah, that's so hard, right? And I've personally had to work on this because you almost have to you never know the emotion or intention the person behind the email is coming at you with, right? And
Yeah.
like some people use a ton of exclamation points, some people use none, some people use abbreviations, some people don't, right? Some people do sentences and paragraphs, some people like literally put 4 words, right? And so it's first off, you got to take out the um like personal attack from it as the reader, as the receiver. Is don't take this personally. If you do and it's really weighing on you, then it's like I got to go clarify this. Like let's go in person. Um, but I think limit it as much as you possibly can. I know corporate America, a lot of times it's like we're all over the place, so we kind of have to send emails and do certain things. But if you can limit it, if you can be short and sweet, and if anything, be consistent. Right? Be consistent. That way it's not like one day you're sending 12 exclamation points and the next day you're sending an email that says no. Like it's
Yeah.
it's how do we be consistent? That way people know what to expect from you. Aren't playing their own mind games of like, why didn't they do this or they did that last time and now they didn't say that. It's just being consistent, and then it's twofold, right? The person sending it should be consistent. The person receiving it shouldn't take anything personally, because you never know until you have a conversation with somebody what the meaning actually is. So it's like, be consistent. Don't take it personally. If you do, go talk to them. Like
Yeah.
in a roundabout way, those are like quick hitters on how to kind of get through some of that digital frustration, if you will.
Clear, concise, consistent communication, right?
There
Like
you go.
it's critical. One of the things though that always comes when I talk to you is that there is a plan. And one of these things, I was talking to my son about this the other day, that you had brought up, of having a plan. Don't plan on failing,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
have a plan for when that failure happens, so that
100%.
you're not caught off guard. I would assume in the same vein here with you, it's having a plan around your communication as an organization. This is our communication plan. This is how we do this. This is our methodology behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point, and you could even argue it's the same as coaching, right? If you have a plan and you know how you're going to do it, there's less emotional, just like riff offs, or not planned or sporadic, where you might be inconsistent and send different messages, and more like, okay, this is going to go out this day. This is what needs to happen here. This is who I communicate with here. This is how I communicate with these people. I think that's brilliant. And sometimes those things aren't avoidable, right? We understand that it's not always going to be picture perfect, but just like the coaches yelling once during practice, maybe you have one emotional email a day or something, right? But every one of them can't be that, right? We can't just be creating chaos. And I think the way you do that is coming back and like, what are my systems in place?
Yeah.
Same questions, right? How is my communication working? Is it working? Is it not working? Are they responding well? Am I getting when I act this way, am I getting the results that I want? If
Yeah.
not, and I have to continue acting this way, then I need to do something. It's the same thing as yelling, but basically through an email, right? And it's just anybody who's listening to this can say, are my communication styles and the way I communicate with people effective? Is it working? Do I get what I want? Like maybe not with your 2-year-old, but everybody else, well, we figure it out. My daughter just learned this, and so we're in that
She's
stage.
communicating.
Yeah,
Hands, eyes,
yeah,
mouth.
yeah, no. So maybe a little lenient there, but it really does, like, is what I'm doing working? I mean, even with her, like we're doing that. Like if it's not working, she's not understanding. We're not there's a disconnect, and so you got to find that. And then once you get clarity, then you can decide how you're going to respond. But if there's not clarity, then it's just like kind of a shit show, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't know what there. It's brutal when it's not there. So don't ever be afraid to go ask for clarity in any situation, whether it's a coach, whether you're the coach, and you want to go talk to the team leader, whether you're the GM, whether you're the president, whatever. Go get clarity. Again, coming back to clarity over complexity. Hey, just to be on the same page, is this what you meant? Great. Like, no. Okay, here, let's get through this. Like, don't be afraid to go ask for clarity. And if you're asking for clarity, make sure you are being clear with other people too, right? Like, try your best to not put people in a position where they're like, can I get clarity here? Like, if you can do that without people having to ask for clarity, you're a step ahead of most, I would say.
Before we wrap up today, I want to go back to the youth coaching world, just because we really want to have an impact on youth sports, and have every kid
Absolutely.
that gets involved in athletics to have a great experience. And in my opinion, if we do that, corporate America is going to have better leaders later on. It's an unbelievable training ground
No
for young leaders. And as a coach, just if you've found yourself yelling and screaming at young people, make a commitment not to do it. And every once in a while you're going to make a mistake, right? Like stuff happens. But the thing I would challenge you, if you do make a commitment that I'm going to be positive with my young people, and
Yeah.
if I make a mistake, apologize to that kid. You want to see some trust built with the young person, walk up to them and the next day and tell them, hey bud, you know what, I lost it yesterday, like you, I have other stuff going on in my life, and I lost track of the fact that I've committed not to yell and scream at you guys, and I want you to know I'm sorry, and I'm going to work really hard not to do that again, and I just want you to know that I appreciate you and I care about you, and you're a huge part of this program, and I'll do my best today to help you be better. If you have those conversations with young people, you'll find yourself having to scream less, because they're going to be leaning in to
Yeah.
everything that you say, because they know you care about them, you trust them, and you've been vulnerable with them.
It's literally like couldn't have said it better, right? I think you have to remember we're all humans and you're going to make mistakes, but if you show them that, then they're going to show you that right back. And they want to know, like, think about the best coaches you've ever had, right?
Hmm.
They would push you, they would yell at you, but you knew that they loved you, and
Yeah.
you knew that they were going to do anything in their power for you to be successful. And it wasn't them constantly yelling at you and then none of that what you just said, right?
Yeah.
It's such a mesh of that empowering and loving, but also like, I'm going to challenge the crap out of you to try to get the best out of you. Those are always our favorite coaches.
Yeah.
So I couldn't agree more.
Well, Hannah, thank you for this conversation. This is one that is near and dear to my heart. I got so lucky as a young coach to be around maybe the best communicator in sport. I've never seen anyone better.
Yeah.
And when he got mad, and he'd get mad, he would whisper. And this guy won a national championship, was the 3-time national coach of the year, just brilliant
Incredible.
coach. And he would whisper, and guys would just lean in to hear what he was saying. And it had such an impact on me
Incredible.
as a young person. And now I go and I watch all of these events and I hear this yelling and screaming at these kids. And I'm like, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. Like,
Literally.
this is not right. So I really appreciate you
Yeah, of course.
giving us your expertise on this. How do people find you? Before we go here, how do people find Hannah Huesman?
All over social media, Hannah Huesman. And then I have a website that's hannahhuesman.com. So feel free to jump in, say hi, say you aren't going to yell at your kids anymore, and we'll be rooting for you. And we're here to help. Like, we know it's hard. And again, we're all having a human experience. So you're not the only one who yells too much. I promise that. If you're listening to this and feeling like we're attacking you, we promise we aren't.
No, we're not. I promise. We just want a better space for youth sports and for people in general. And we will continue this series. Hannah, I know you have some travel to take care of. Thank you for making the time today. And until next time, those of you out there listening, the best way to get this message out is to share this with your friends. You hear this and you think it's something that's important for other people to listen to, like it, give us some feedback, and then share this with your coaching friends out there. Totally. Until next time, see you, Hannah.